Oh, made in Canada. This is like very Canadian. I want to show you all the panel pieces that you need to make this garment, and then I want to break down what I think this costs to make here in Canada. I would say to make something like this here in Canada, you're probably looking at maybe like, all right, what do you got for me today?
Check this out.
Okay, Reigning Champ, Canadian brand. It was based out of Vancouver. Originally the same guys as Wings and Horns. I think they got bought in 2021 by Aritzia. I think it was like 65 mil or something like that.
63.
Okay. We have a heathered gray hoodie with a double zip. Nice touch with the Reigning Champ branding. It's a YKK size 5 zipper. So Reigning Champ is like a athletic wear brand. I think Roan or more kind of like rugged athletic wear, like, you know, Rocky would kind of wear Reigning Champ. So that's why you're getting a lot of flat lock seams here on the arms. We have a 1x1 rib on the sleeves and the bottom hem. The pocket here also has a rib, but this one is larger than the ones on the pockets and the sleeves. We have a natural colored cotton drawstring, 100% cotton terry on the inside. PC sticker. Oh, made in Canada. Okay, interesting decision by them. We have a cotton twill tape here to cover the seams by the zipper and the neck. We have a double line 2-panel hood. Feels like it's the same body material on both sides, but when we take apart, we'll take a look. We have the Reigning Champ main label here with a zigzag stitch carried on the outside. I don't know how I feel about that. I get, you know, a lot of companies that are doing very simplistic branding on the garments try to have something iconic. Think of like the Lululemon 3 lines that they have on their shirts. This is clearly Reigning Champ's attempt at a iconic branding element, which I assume they're gonna carry this across multiple styles. We have a hang tag here, and this was $175 Canadian pesos. So the inside here is being a 100% cotton terry. You're gonna get a lot of like lint that comes off on your clothing. I'm already collecting some lint on me wherever I'm touching that. If you're ever wondering what that lint is, that's just the loose fibers from the cotton actually just transferring and coming out from the knit itself. The workmanship's pretty decent. This is like very Canadian. So what do I mean by that? If you grew up in Canada, you grew up around a company called Roots. They had a lot of kind of garments like this. So seeing this, I would say, at least in terms of design wise, I don't think there's anything really special here. It's something any Canadian has kind of seen growing up, you know, minus the flat lock seams and the ribbing on the pockets. It is a clean aesthetic. I think for a lot of people, the made in Canada is definitely gonna be a selling point. We have a Reigning Champ badge over here with a printed transfer. There is a little defect here on the terry. Typically you catch this during the manufacturing stage. If you are buying something like this, I would double check on the inside that you don't have a terry that's like this, just because the loops itself, these will actually start coming loose. Just because that one was loose, I was able to pull out this entire track of the terry loops in the back. So if you are gonna buy a garment that has a terry on the inside, especially if it's cotton, just make sure that the loops are not broken, because it's going to be very easy for that to come apart in the future. I'll show you again right here. If I were to just break this one over here, now I go over here and I pull from here, I can pull that entire track out. Same with these. Break these, you can pull these from here. And the reason why you can do this with terry, because terry fabric is essentially a single jersey on the front. So the same that you're using for t-shirts, and then they tuck and then they loop these in the back to give you that terry back. You'll see here. Actually, I might as well just break a bunch of them here. And that is the base of a terry fabric. This is what makes terry fabrics really great to keep warmth and to pull sweat away, because it's essentially a towel on the inside. And you're able to use whatever you want for the inside yarn on the terry back. And in this case, they went with a natural colored cotton that hasn't been bleached and is of a thicker yarn size to give that particular aesthetic that they're going for in the back. So there's a little crash course on terry fabrics. So I would say in terms of workmanship, there's not a lot of defects that I can see here. One thing I would say with a garment like this, when you start using flat lock on them, typically you're using flat lock on a lot of synthetic fibers, like 4-way stretch fabrics that are a lot thinner, and that when you cut the edge is gonna be very clean. You'll see here, because this is a natural fiber garment, when you do a flat lock seam, you're gonna have that raw edge exposed, which leads to like looks almost like a patchwork when you're doing stuff like that. So I think they could have just went with a lot of traditional seams here to get the final garment assembled, but I think they're trying to turn something that wouldn't necessarily be considered super athletic into something that looks athletic because it has those flat lock seams. But again, overall, I would say fabric's okay. It's very Canadian. It's something that we've grown up with here in Canada, and I know Reigning Champ's really kind of getting pushed in the US now as well, but this is something that feels very familiar. Diego, you've tried this, or you felt this. Does this remind you of any particular brands?
I would say mostly Roots.
Right?
Yeah,
it's
mostly Roots.
I would not even be surprised if it's made in the same facilities, to be honest. There's not many left in Canada in terms of manufacturers. It's like a mid-weight, mid-lightweight kind of cotton terry. Typically, the trend now is much heavier. You know, we're seeing hoodies that are going 400 to 500 GSM. So this is definitely kind of staying in its own lane of what it's trying to be. But let's take this apart. I want to show you all the panel pieces that you need to make this garment, and then I won't break down what I think this costs to make here in Canada. All right, so let's take it apart. We have the kind of standard hang tag, nothing too thick. Logo is a little off center to the left. And the reason why this happens from a packaging standpoint is they print these in giant sheets and then they cut it. So if the print is off alignment or the mold for cutting isn't perfectly center, you're gonna end up with a hang tag that is not perfectly centered like that. In terms of checking it and QCing it on a factory level, if we were making this, we would have failed something like this just because it's visually obvious. You know, when it comes to manufacturing, there's going to be tolerances when you're making anything, but something shouldn't be as visually obvious as this. One thing you could do to get around that is create more negative space so then you can't actually see and perceive the spacing here. Then we got a coated string here. Let me take this off. And it's looped around the neck loop. You have a cotton drawstring here. So this is not tacked into the hood. Typically, if I'm including a drawstring, I would like to tack it so it doesn't move and you don't lose it in the wash, because this is going to get tangled into something and get pulled out. However, a lot of people do like just removing their drawstrings in its entirety these days, but this is what we call a woven label. So when you're actually designing these, you'll see that there's the front side and then the letters that come through. The letters that come through are almost done like a basket. So on the flip side, so what I mean by basket is just they're woven in like that. So you'll see on the flip side, all the loose black fibers are going to be present where they're not coming through the front of the design. And you'll see that where the black is on the front and coming out, that the white is on the back here. So when you're designing woven labels as a brand, one thing you do have to keep in mind is the kind of fidelity or the ability to go very clear or to do small objects. I would say in terms of a woven label, like this is a pretty nice one. They're able to get the threads really tight. You're able to have crisp letters on something even like this I and the middle of the A. Depending on the woven label supplier you are using, you might actually have issues getting that fine of a detail. But this is a pretty nice woven label, but again, you have to be mindful with most woven labels that this is gonna be on the back. Sometimes this gets caught. A lot of times people will use these to hang their clothes. So as a designer, when you're creating something with a woven label, make it so that people won't use it to hang their garment, because it's gonna get caught in here. It's gonna destroy the main branding element of your brand. And overall, it's just not gonna be aesthetically pleasing. What Stone Island does, they actually just back it with another one. But there's your main label here. We also have another variation of a branding element here. This one's actually just a printed label. So let me take this off here. So this one being a printed label, you're able to get a lot more crisp and clear details because it's not going to be actually woven into the design itself. It's going to be printed, but it gives a very much a different effect. I think a lot of people just choose this in the back of the label because a lot of brands have used a damask woven on the main tag, but there's many other options that you can go on the inside. Okay, and then next here we have the twill tape. Again, the twill tape is going to be here to hide the raw edges here. So let me break this open. Okay, so I've removed one of the cotton twill tapes here from the inside edge. You'll see here where when you're finishing off a garment here, you need to turn over the fabric. You need to stitch it, or else you'll get like a raw edge like this. Being an element that is going to be beside a zipper that people are going to be interacting with a lot, if you do have it exposed, it's something that a lot of people are going to notice. And I think having the flat lock seams, having it more of a clean brand and clean silhouette, to have that cotton twill over the seam over here is going to just continue that design motif of being more of that clean aesthetic and more of that kind of raw cotton aesthetic that they're going for on the inside here, rather than something that would look like this. Okay, so here is the other cotton twill. Here is the zipper. When it comes to a brand and their design elements, zippers are going to be a main touch point for your garment. So this is where they definitely spend their money. They have 2 custom zippers here. They have to spend money getting a mold done for these. A lot of times they're made out of zinc and then they're coated. This looks like it's nickel coated, and it's a double end zipper. So you always want to have a double end zipper on a garment like this. So when you're sitting in a chair, you just unzip the bottom so you can actually sit down more comfortably. But in terms of making this garment special, this is what does it. Most of these other elements, I would say, are nothing too special, but this is something that is going to elevate the product to make it feel like a main brand Reigning Champ item. Same tape here for the neck. And again, you'll see here, you can finish this with a cover stitch on the other side to hold this down, but just by putting this over, you can see here, it's a lot cleaner of aesthetic. Okay, so this is the hood. Taking off the hood now, you'll see it is lined with the same fabric. A lot of times, if you want a lighter weight hood, you can line it with a single jersey that would have the same kind of marled effect here or heathered effect. In this case, they went with the same fabric. I would actually expect when it comes to, especially being made in Canada here, using the same fabric is going to make it a lot easier to manufacture. So they don't have to source another fabric type to get this garment done. And here, you actually see here too, they have some what's called interfacing here. And this is just going to provide additional support, probably behind the hole here for the drawstring. Let me open this seam up. We'll take a look at that. So you'll see here, to reinforce the drawstring hole here, there's several ways you can go about it. You can put a grommet, or in this case, they just use thread to reinforce it. But then what they did is they put this additional interfacing behind it to provide additional support, because otherwise the terry fabric has a lot of stretch. So you want to limit that stretch for an area like this, so that when you do pull the drawstring, it'll come out and won't just tug on the fabric. So when it comes to shaping your hood as well, this is actually a point where a lot of brands mess up on, because depending on how heavy the fabric is, how much the fabric drapes, if your hood is actually too short, your head is now going to be carrying the weight of the entire garment. And if your hood is too long, you're going to end up with this kind of like Sith Lord kind of hood. So depending on what a brand's trying to achieve, you need to actually take into consideration the weight of the fabric and the hood shape that you're trying to do, because you are trying to conform something that is flat around something that is round. Always keep that in mind when you're designing a hood, what you want your ultimate shape to be. I would also say too, based off of just the pure amount of lint coming off of this, I don't think this fabric is pre-shrunk or pre-washed. So you're gonna have to keep in mind that this is probably going to shrink after you wash this, or machine wash this cold. Does it even actually say here? Yeah, 30C. It's like the most generic care label I've ever seen on like a mainline product. This is a 2-panel sleeve here. All right, so now that we've taken this all apart, here's all the components that you need to make this heathered gray hoodie from Reigning Champ. You have your sleeve panels here. These are actually 2-panel sleeves, and on the back panel here, it's actually a slight raglan sleeve that attaches over here to, again, give you that kind of like sporty aesthetic that they're looking to go for here. We have the back panel here. We have the hood panels here. These are 2-panel hoods with a self-fabric liner. We have the bottom ribbing here. We have the main YKK zipper, size 5, with the Reigning Champ branding. We have the cotton twill tape here, as well as the cotton drawstring. We have the ribbing for the sleeves, which is going to be the same ribbing as the bottom hem. We have the front panels here, along with the front panel pockets. We have the printed label here for the bottom hem. We have the damask woven here for the main label, as well as a very generic care label here, and size label and hang tag. So again, just based off of how much loose fibers are coming out of here, I want to say this probably is not pre-shrunk, because when you're pre-shrinking a terry, a lot of these loose fibers will come out during that drying cycle, so you won't end up with so much loose lint everywhere. So one thing to be mindful, again, when you do wash this, this probably will shrink if you dry it on high. So let's see what the GSM here is, and I will give you my final thoughts on this garment and tell you what I think it costs to make here in Canada. GSM is grams per square meter. It's how you actually measure how heavy a fabric is. Fortunately, most GSM cutters on the market right now suck, but I might be working on something for that. Here is the swatch here. We're gonna place it in our scale. 400 GSM. If they're going for 100, that's pretty bang on. Let's recap. This fabric is 400 GSM. It is a natural cotton back terry, marled fabric on the outside, a heathered gray. This is made in Canada. This has a branded zipper. In terms of workmanship here, there's a lot of panels here. And every single panel that's going to be there is going to be a line, and it's going to be an additional step in manufacturing. When it comes to flat locks, there's actually not a lot of skilled workers in Canada that can do flat locks, because flat locks is a kind of technology that you're going to see with a lot more athletic wear, which a lot of Asian countries are doing. So you're not going to see a lot of workers here, or even a lot of machinery here in Canada that can do flat lock. So I expect this is probably a grandfathered in factory they've been using for a long time. I think the relationship has been built out over time for them to continue manufacturing this product. I would say to make something like this here in Canada, you're probably looking at maybe like $30, maybe a little more or a little less. I don't know how much volume Reigning Champ is moving. Also, I don't know if the fabric, just because it says handcrafted in Canada, I don't know if the fabric itself is actually made here in Canada. Due to the complexity of this garment, as just a purely business decision, if they're making enough of these, they probably would want to just import the fabric from overseas, because it can be a lot more cost effective to actually make this fabric from overseas. However, if this is made in Canada with Canadian fabric, I think what they're trying to do here is pretty cool. They're definitely keeping a garment industry alive here in Canada. Overall though, if you were to remove this Reigning Champ branding and zipper from this garment, I don't think this is anything too special. Again, this is a fabric we grew up with here in Canada. But overall, I think for 175 bucks, for being made in Canada, I don't think the cost is outrageous for a product like this. Do I think it could have been made better with different fabric choices, a little more attention to detail in terms of the trims? Yes, but in terms of Reigning Champ's kind of design ethos, they're not too flashy of a brand. They stick to pretty much like blacks, like grays and dark colors. So in terms of the design decisions, Reigning Champ, they very clearly know what lane they're in, and they want to stay in that lane, and they're not trying to chase trends, which I can definitely appreciate for a brand. With this being made in Canada at $175, chatting with Diego, he made a good point. After taxes, you're looking at almost $200. In my opinion, I don't know if I would buy this for myself. Again, I just don't want this fleece coming off on me on the inside. I think without this zipper element, it really is just a very plain, generic hoodie. But again, the manufacturing is decent. If you like something that's made in Canada and that's important to you, I'd say go ahead and buy it because there's not a lot of made in Canada options. But overall, I think it's very interesting to see what they're doing here. I can appreciate the design decisions they've made. But let me know in the comments if you would buy this hoodie at this price point, and if you have any other Reigning Champ items that you like, or if their quality's changed over time, because that's something I've been hearing recently as well. So let us know what other brands you want to see on the show, and I'll give you industry behind the scenes secrets on how it's constructed and how it's made. If you like this video, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for a lot more breakdowns like this. If you guys want to see more of these type of videos and more on what goes on behind the scenes in fashion, don't forget to subscribe and check out these videos.